Hi guys and welcome, this is Steve here from mastermodsuk.com. Today I'm going to be showing you a video installation guide on how to install one of these, our new version of our PS4 Fusion Flex, into your PS4 controller. So this is obviously, we also do brand new controllers if you want to buy a controller from us, but if you feel like having a go yourself, if you've already got loads of controllers, you don't physically need an extra controller, you can buy the ModFlex and you can do it yourself, and I'm going to show you exactly how. We've made the ModFlex extremely easy to use, so even a novice with just basic soldering skills should be able to do this in around 10 minutes or so. Okay, so most people don't know that basically there are three versions of the PS4 controller. From the outside they all look exactly the same. On the inside, however, there are subtle differences on the circuit board. Because of that, we have modified our Flex. This is the version 2 of the PS4 Flex that we do, and this basically will cover all of the current versions this is March 2015, all current versions of the PS4 circuit board inside. So you don't have to worry about what version of the controller you've got. As long as you've got an official PlayStation 4 DualShock controller, then our ModFlexes will work, and the guide that I'm about to show you will work with all of them. You don't have to worry about identifying what board you've got, it will work the same with all of them. Okay, so let's crack on. Put the ModFlex to one side for a second. Okay, so the PS4 controller, spin it round to the back, and on the back you'll see that there, I've already taken them out to save a little bit of time. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 screws in the back. They are a small Phillips crosshead screwdriver. So you need one of those, just take out all 4, pop them to one side. They're very small, so obviously make sure you put them somewhere safe so they don't get lost. Spin the controller over onto its head, and now take a small flat-bladed screwdriver. Don't be tempted to go gouging and trying to prise it open. They come open very simply if you know how. You can see the join here, just apply a little bit of pressure so you can see it's just pulling apart at the top. Now use your flat blade screwdriver, place it in just here. There's a clip here and a clip here on the inside. Just slightly down to the side, pop. Slightly down to the side, pop. And you can see now it's all the way across, and we haven't damaged anything on the controller at all. Hardly any force needed there. Now just pull one side gently until you hear the pop where the clips come open, and the other side, pop, clips come open. Spin it round. Don't be tempted to just rip it straight off, we're not ready yet. What we need to do is press up from the bottom to lift it up over the trigger assembly. So up, one side up, lift out. Still don't rip it off because there's a ribbon connector. Now place it back down and just pull out the ribbon connector, and there you go, there's your back of your case. You can pop that to one side, we don't need that one at the moment. Okay, so now you can see here's the battery, and the battery's connected just here. So what we're going to do is just pull the battery terminal up and out, and the battery shelf is held in by 2 clips. There's one clip just here and one on the other side. With your flat blade, just go down, lift up, down, lift up. Take the battery out, put it to one side. Okay, at this stage your circuit board may look very slightly different to this depending on what version you have, but you don't need to worry, okay, so it's all going to work exactly the same. Okay, so you can see we've got a ribbon connector just up here, and there's a small, hopefully you can see it, there's a small black hinge just there. All you need to do is just with a little bit of pressure just lift the hinge up and then pull the tab of the ribbon connector upward, and you can see now he comes out. Hold him out to one side, that ribbon connector connects to the touchpad. Okay, so now there's one screwdriver holding the whole of the circuit board in. Again, it's a small Phillips crosshead, so take that screw out, pop that to one side, and now if you just put the circuit board straight down, you'll see the put the controller straight down. You see the circuit board wants to rise anyway because the thumbsticks are pushing it up. Lift straight up and spin it over. No need to disconnect the rumble motors, there's plenty of room in there to do it. Just spin them over, turn it round. Now we're going to put in our flex board. Okay, some versions of the controllers have more room here than others. Okay, so the easiest way, without having to worry about what version you've got, I'm going to show you is on your ModFlex here. You see there's a black strip along the bottom here. We're going to cut that black strip off. We don't want to cut any of these contacts off, just the black strip along the bottom. And by doing that, it ensures that we've got plenty of room. No matter what version of the controller you have, got plenty of room for it to fit. Okay, so that's all you're cutting off, is that little piece on the bottom there. Okay, right, now you need to apply some solder. So if you don't know how to solder, then watch some videos obviously teaching you how to solder. There's various ways. I use a different method to most people. I don't feed solder in, I use a chisel tip. so I load solder onto the tip of my soldering iron first. Okay, so there's a little brass contact just here. All we're going to do is load a small bit of solder onto that brass contact just there, and then we're going to put another bit of solder just here. That's where we're going to connect to is this bottom contact of the touchpad button just there. Okay, so all I'm doing is prepping those 2 points with a little bit of solder. Now if we bring it round, and all you're going to do is lay it on top of these contacts basically. So you're going to lay it on top there, and to make sure you've got it in line, what you need to do, sorry bear with me, what you need to do is just make sure that you've lined up these holes just there and just there. So line up those 2 holes, and when you're in line, we know that we're in the right place. So then you can connect that little solder patch to that button, and that's that one. That's a connection all made, all done. So now, just to make sure that it stays in place when we spin the controller back, when we spin the circuit board back over, I like to put a small bit of hot melt glue in the corner. You can use a tiny bit of tape or something if you prefer, but whatever, I just suggest that you put something in the top corner just like this to make sure that when we spin the circuit board back over, that's going to stay in line. It's not going to move at all. So turn your controller back round, and now circuit board back over, lie it straight back down in so the thumbsticks are going through, and push it back down in place. If at this stage your ribbon connector has got, this one's obviously on top, but if it's got tucked underneath the circuit board, just use your flat blade and just to flick it back out again, okay? So make sure it's on top. Now that the circuit board's back in place, we're going to screw it back in. Okay, circuit board's fixed back in. Now all you need to do is just pop the controller back down and reconnect the touchpad ribbon connector. So back in here, and then push the black hinge back down on top. Okay. Now what we're going to do is fold the rest of our flex board down. When you fold it down, you'll see it already goes down in place. What we're going to do is connect to just here for the L3 connection. So when you fold it down, it already sits on top of the L3 connection for you anyway. And all you need to do is just solder that open ring to that connection point there. Okay, so we've got that connection made. Last connection for the Fusion version is just spin it round. We need to connect to the R3 connection as well. For this you need a small piece of keynar that's come with your kit, keynar wire. Strip a couple of millimeters off one end, and we're going to solder to the R3 connection over here. These connection points are highlighted in the pictures and write-up on the installation guide as well if you want to double check where they are. It's just here, and just obviously then just make sure that you've got about enough to reach to the R3 connection on the flex board. The R3 connection on the flex board is actually written by the side of it, spin around so we're around the right way. It's written just here as R3, so you know that's the one you're going to go to. Again, strip a couple of millimeters from the end, and then solder the end of the wire to the R3 connection. There we go. Okay, if you're doing the Fusion version of our install, that's it, you're all done. Just pop your battery back in, push it back down so it's all clipped on. Obviously remember to connect your battery, bring your rear case back over, connect your ribbon connector. The open brass contacts are facing to the left, so it goes down in this way. You'll see with this new version of the circuit board, the flex, that we've made it flex so it covers it, just lift the flex up, and then you can put your ribbon connector back down in this point here, okay? Connect it back in, shell back on, screws back in, all done. Literally, 5 minutes and it's done. Go and enjoy your hard work and enjoy playing with your new modded controller. If you're still watching, then it means that you're either thinking about or you've already bought one of our Elite Flex kits. It has all exactly the same versions, so all exactly the same features as the Fusion version, but it also has 2 extra mod buttons that we're going to fit to the back that can be mapped to reflect any button on the controller. Okay, so if you're still here, let's crack on. That's what we're going to do. If you bought the Fusion version, you can carry on. You don't need to watch the rest of this, and you can enjoy your controller. Okay, so let's pop this to one side for a second. With the Elite version, what we're going to do is we're going to put 2 buttons on the back. The buttons, the best place for these buttons are just here and here, and I'm going to show you where that corresponding point is on the inside now. You need a 4mm or roughly 4mm drill bit for this. It doesn't have to be 4mm if you're using imperial sizes. Basically, as long as the drill bit is slightly larger than the pole of the button. So this is the pole. So as long as the diameter of the drill is slightly larger than the diameter of the button, then it will work just fine. Obviously you don't want it huge so the whole button falls through, just a little bit bigger, like 1mm or half mil bigger than the diameter of the button. So around 4mm. Okay, so put that button to one side for a second. So now we need to go on and drill. The best place for these are just here, so I can show you guys so there's no confusion. This angled piece here, on any version of the controller you'll have this. This is where the battery sits. Just to the outside. Obviously make sure you're not so close that you're going to hit against this, but just sort of here and just here. I'll drill those holes and then you can see where they are. One there, and on the other side. One there. Okay, tip the bits of plastic out, and then all I use is just a slightly larger drill bit, and all you're going to do is just take off the edges, so make sure we've got nice clean edges. You can just turn that by hand on the insides and on the outsides. You can see you've got a little plastic edge, so if you just turn it by this, it takes away the burr of the plastic and gives you a nice neat finish. There we go. So that's where our two holes are going to be for our buttons. Spin it back over. And I would advise you do it this way around, because now by putting our buttons in we can glue them in place, and while that's drying we can go on and do the last couple of wires on the circuit board itself. So I'm just doing this without showing you. I'll pop that one in. With the buttons, they come with 4 legs. You can chop a couple off if you prefer, but the way I like to do it is just, they'll only bend down one way, just bend them down so they're laid flat across the base of the button, so you now form 2 bands. Pop that, obviously pole first, down through your hole. You see that's where they're going to live. And now all we do is take our hot melt glue and cover the button completely with hot melt glue. Don't just stick your finger straight on top if you're doing it the same way I do. Just wet your finger and press down on top. By doing so it makes sure that the glue gets in all of the crevices and you get a really nice fit with the button. Make sure it stays there and doesn't come out at all. Okay, same with the other side. Cover it with glue. Make sure it goes down into all the crevices. There we go. Okay, all done. Don't go touching them any more than that. Now just pop it to one side for your hot melt glue to dry. And whilst that's drying, we're going to connect the wires that are going to go to our buttons. The wires, we've already made it nice and simple for you. Hopefully it shows up on the camera. We've got here map 2, you've got 2 contacts, and map 1, 2 contacts there. Map 1 is obviously the 2 contacts going to one button, map 2 is the 2 contacts going to the other button. So all we need to do is connect 4 wires going away from there. To do so, I like to turn it round so it's facing this way. Now take your Keynar wire that you've got with your kit, and all we need to do is strip again just a couple of millimeters, 2-3 mil from the end of the wire, and solder to each of those contacts. Okay, just dip one at a time. Lengthwise, what's that, about 6 inches or so I say is a good length, so put it to the side, you can see how long that is. I'd say roughly about 6-7 inches is a good length. And then repeat the same again, couple of mil. Solder the wire to the other connection of map 2. Make sure it's about the same length. So there you go, that's our map 1 connections. Now we're going to do the same for our map 2 connections. As you can see, you didn't get a good connection that time. My advice is when you do solder these, or any of your soldering, just give them a little tug, just like that. Obviously not really hard, just to make sure you've got a good connection. So as you see, when I give it a little tug, he came off. It's called a cold solder, basically, when it hasn't taken properly. So last connection. There we go, all four done. Okay, at this stage, top tip for you, rather than go on and start stripping the other ends, I like to put a little bit of hot melt glue, not across the terminals itself, but just behind. Flatten that down with a wet finger. And then basically the reason I do that is now if we tug on this wire at all during the rest of our install, we're not going to pull it off the terminals, are we? We're just pulling against the glue. Okay, so you don't have to worry now too much about pulling those and damaging them. So separate your pairs. Make sure obviously you get the two pairs from map 1 and map 2. So, and I like to just put them either side so you know which ones are which. Now, again, I use a pair of nose pliers to pull against when I'm stripping my wires when they're connected. You don't have to, but it just means that you're pulling against the nose pliers rather than against the connections. So again, this time you're going to strip a bit more this time, about sort of 5mm off the ends of each of these wires, because these are going onto the button contacts, which are a bit larger. Okay, that's all our pairs made up. So at this stage now, our hot melt glue is all dry. You can see, nice and dry, nice and firm. On the outside there's our buttons. Check they're pressing freely. Yep, all done. Spin them over this way and take one of your pairs. Make sure you keep them in pairs. Take one of your pairs, and all we're going to do is solder one wire from the pair to one side of the button connections, and obviously the other wire to the other side of the button connections. So you should have that. Okay, and then you're going to do exactly the same for the other side. So the other pair, make sure that your ribbon connector is out of the way. You don't want to obviously melt the ribbon connector whilst you're doing this. Okay, so I got exactly the same again. Just going to put one side, grab the other wire, one on the other side, and that is all the soldering done. Finished. Okay, all we need to do now is just obviously be a little bit careful when you're putting it back together. Make sure your ribbon connector doesn't get tangled in the wires. Again, contacts to the left hand side, bend them into shape and connect the ribbon connector for your light bar back up. He's back in, we're all done. Now all we need to do is just put the battery back on. Right guys, at this point, another top tip for you, okay? If you've got one of the older version circuit boards, the button here, which presses down onto the reset contact here, just lift it out and throw it away. You can still use the reset button with just a small pin or something like that if you ever need to, although to be honest I've never known anybody need to press the reset button on these controllers. With this version, this is a newer version, it's actually connected with plastic. My preference, you don't have to do this, it's your choice, but my preference, I'm going to take this off and throw it away. The reason being is when we put it back in, if one of these wires lies back on top of it and we put the case back on, what you'll find there's very little clearance and it may actually press down on top of the reset button for you. It's not very often it happens, but just to save any fuss you having to take the controller back apart, my suggestion, simply take that one off. Okay, it comes off nice and easy, and there you go. So now it will still all work exactly the same. Pop your battery back in place, connect to your battery, remember to plug it in. Now when you go over, all you need to do is just make sure that your wires are sitting nice and freely. Just guide them where you want them to sit. We want them to sit on top of the battery so they're not going to foul with anything. Okay, so if you've got wires popping out, just plug it back in. Now when you come down, clip over the top of the triggers, click down at the back, spin them over, click, click, done. There you go. And there's your controller. Obviously just remember to put your 4 screws back in. Your buttons are now all fixed in place. Your mod is ready to use. Off you go and enjoy your hard work. Like I said, if you're looking at these, if you've come this far, that's for the Elite version. If you're just doing the Fusion version, obviously you don't need to follow those last steps. You halfway through the video, that's all you need to watch when I was talking about putting the case back on before. And that's it guys, we sell brand new controllers, we sell the ModFlex, and we also do a mod service for the UK customers where they can send their controller in and we'll modify it for them and send it back. We sell through eBay, through mastermodsuk, and we obviously have our own website, which hopefully you're looking at now, mastermodsuk.com. Any questions, feel free to drop me a line.